Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education, a podcast that focuses on what is happening in education today, connecting everyone to the movers and shakers that are breaking boundaries in the education arena.
Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education. I'm Jerry Kimball, and with me is my co-host, Jamie Saponaro. Today we have with us Toney Jackson, and I am so excited to meet Toney. I've been kind of trolling you online, Toney, and finding out what you're all about. So
cool.
I'm thinking this is going to be so much fun. We're going to have a great time. I'm noticing all of your creativity and that you're kind of an artist and a poet, and you have been hacking the classroom by really loving kids and making them feel like they're a part of something bigger and really making them feel welcome. So can you introduce yourself in the Toney Jackson way?
Sure, Toney Jackson. Okay, so we're so we're gonna go a little freestyle here, okay?
Okay.
Go for it. All right. So this is an introduction. It's not an interlude. I'm telling you who I am. It's kind of an interview. My name is Toney Jackson. I like rapping in the classroom and get to action. The kids, I passed them. Hopefully they were listening to what I had to say. Give them the best. It's not just about a test. It's about the learning that we do and all the fun we have. I love it. It could be a grab bag. It could be whatever is coming off of the head right now. Thank you for having me on the show. I like how we're doing this. It's a conversation all across the nation. People are listening and they're twisting it into their... Well, that's where we stop right there. So it takes over and then it runs out. So,
And then but I mean, like, that was like off the cuff. That's what's so exciting is this. I don't have this creativity. So to me, this blows my mind. So exciting.
Thank you. And I gotta say, it's amazing for me to do something like that and lose the ending and then have people say, hey, that was really cool. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Oh my gosh.
Have you always been a poet?
You know what? My mom was a poet. Both of my parents were teachers, first of all. And my mom was a poet, so I was always around poetry. My dad was a pastor, so I was always around. He was such a great orator, so I always had words, spoken and written. And when I was in school, one of my teachers in high school said that we could either do a poem or an essay on an assignment, and I was like, poem. And I wrote a poem about my jeans, and I was like, that was kind of cool, and I kind of stuck with it that way. So I had written a little bit, always from when I was younger, a tiny bit here and there, but that was what really got me, like writing all the time.
We always say choice is so important for students, right? And
Amen.
That's what made you. I mean, just that little option that teacher gave you just put you on a path it's so important. So important.
Yeah. Miss at the time she was Miss Raglovich, but Miss Rabinowitz. Yes, absolutely.
She had those are tongue twister names too.
see, that's where it comes from. See, I like to play around with words. I like to play around with craft moves. And so, yeah, that's a fun name. Those are fun names to say.
Right. So language is your jam.
It is.
You just make it happen. It's your playground.
That's a great way to say it. Yeah, look, you're giving me bars right now. Yes, that's true. Yeah, I love to play around with it. Like I said, whether it's on the page or out loud, and it's something that happens just in conversation sometimes.
Really?
So yeah, absolutely.
So how do you use this in your classroom as a teacher?
So now, because I went to school for art. I was a visual artist, and that's what I went to college for. But while I was there, I was writing a bunch of poetry, and so my friends and I used to. It was the way that we communicated, right? It was how we related to each other and expressed everything. And so we started going into schools. So at first, we would go into schools and just show them kind of what we do and help them to write. Fast forward a million years, I'm in the classroom 15 years now. And I just see it touching everything across all disciplines. So I think of it as a way to share myself with my students because it's what I'm passionate about. But I also see it as a way to help them find the language that they speak best with or that best helps them to communicate. It's not always going to be a rap. right? You know, some of the kids will hear it and will, you know, like to try it. And I have a bunch of kids who didn't think they were rappers that are, but I also have kids who, you know, it's not their jam necessarily, but they still rock with it, you know, or they will say, you know, hey, this makes me want to find something that I do where that's my niche, or, you know, that can help me. And, you know, I like to say that it's not just the rhyming, right? It's the whole idea and the culture of hip hop, which is so much about, you know, remixing things and trying things in a different way and innovating. And, you know, there's like, you know, when you break down hip hop, you've got b-boying or breakdancing. So there's like kinesthetic movement. You have rap, which is the oral transmission of the language. You have DJing, which is like the technology and innovation. So yeah, I think and then you have graffiti art, of course, which is, you know, visual. So yeah, so it's all there. It's how I am able to present myself and all the content to my students.
And you know what I love about when you introduced yourself? You were going, and then you stopped. And if I were in your classroom, I would love that, because it would tell me that it's okay not to have that next idea. And that, you know, even the teacher doesn't have it all the time.
Amen. Yeah, I think that
learning.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that it's all about, you know, we had a sign for the longest time in the physical room that said, you know, mistakes are great ways to learn. And yes, you know, I love when that I can fumble in front of my kids, or that I can fall off, because, you know, I wouldn't be able to do what I do now if I hadn't fallen a million times and continue to work on it.
Right. Just bring up. Going for it again.
That's
absolutely. Right. Absolutely. So you've had a lot of inspiration, your parents and your teachers.
Yes.
Definitely. And then I'm sure you are such an inspiration to your kids at school as well as you.
I hope so.
What do you teach?
So our fourth grade, our fourth grade team is across all disciplines, right? So social studies, science, math, and language arts. And you know, it's funny to think those are the content areas, but yeah, there's so much more within that, you know. The arts are obviously always a part of the classroom. And so you know, it's tough now because of the situation now, so I don't get to collaborate in the same way with all the teachers. But, you know, I had so many ideas about talking to the specialists, and, you know, hey, like the music teacher is writing songs with them, and I have some ideas, so maybe we can collaborate that way. And one time we played I played a beat for the kids, and then one of the kids recognized the Fur Elise as the sample. And so, you know, he started playing it, you know, on the piano, the classical piece. And then he said, oh yeah, you know, we talked about this with, you know, with our music teacher. So, you know, there's so many ways that it connects to everything else.
Yeah. So it's so impressive. So you obviously incorporate interdisciplinary approach, right? Obviously differentiation is what you're all about. Right? Obviously, self-expression is what you're all about. So this is all incorporated. So it really is perfect that you're a fourth grade teacher teaching all content areas, because now they can see how, you know, math isn't math, close the book, go to science. It's all integrated, right? It's all integrated. Right. And really your approach highlights that immensely. So that really makes a big difference. But also you're able to do this because you're so talented. You're not just a poet, you're an illustrator as well. You're an author. We're going to talk about your book later also. Books, plural, right? Mm-hmm. So with all of this that you're bringing to the table, how have you seen your students respond? What impacts have you seen? Specifically, I mean, you expressed the impact that your teacher had on you with just giving you voice and choice in the classroom. What are you seeing? What are you seeing?
I think it starts by students seeing that they can be themselves, even if they don't know themselves yet. Right. You know, the classroom can be a place where they can express themselves however they choose. You know, within the bounds of our beliefs, because that's one of the things that we cover first, like at the very beginning of the year. Here's our beliefs that we find together that connect all of us. Right. And so, you know, once we hold those, then, you know, everything's going to flow from that. But yeah, I would say the classroom being a safe place for them to find themselves. And just like we were talking about, they can try things and they may not work, or, you know, they may try something that they love for a little bit of time and that leads them to something else. And you know, it's been really exciting because kids will show me things and share things with me because I'm so open with them. So
Right.
I share things that I'm working on, or ideas that I have. And now my students are in such a great creative space right now, because they will, you know, I'll give them one assignment and it will turn into something that they decided they wanted to do, you know?
Right.
So, you know, an essay doesn't just live on the page anymore. That essay, you know, they presented essays today, and some of them did them as slide presentations. Some of them, like the kids surprised me and wrote 30 poems, and we were doing essays about animals. So they wrote 30 poems, you know, a couple of them got together and they're meeting, you know, mind you, on their own Google Meets or Zooms or however, outside of class,
Right.
and then coming and telling me like, hey, Mr. Jackson, we got, you know, can we present? Of course. So I give them the space to do that. And then, you know, I try to learn as much as I can from them. So, you know, I find some of the platforms that they like. I just got onto to Twitch, which, you know, I'd heard of before, but, you know, I have kids who are gamers. So, you know, we play, just talking about this yesterday. We play Prodigy is a math game, and we play it online. So I did a Twitch stream of it, you know, and then, you know, students who were kind of, you know, hadn't said much, you know, were like, I saw the video, that was so great, you know, and then I put it up, and then, you know, then they make them and we play together. So all that to say, I've seen them be themselves, you know, and that's been awesome.
Well, you're making this community and making them feel like it's not yours and they're invited in, but you share it. You share it, and that's this way. They also are not just looking at what they have to do, but how to go beyond and grow. And that's really what we want them to do. If we limit them and say you have to have a certain number of whatever, some kids are just going to do that.
So
but
true.
What you are inspiring and motivating them because of the engagement and the connections that you find with them, they're just flourishing. It's really exciting. I love it. I love it. And I think you seem so humble about it, but you really, it really is something beyond what a lot of other teachers do. It's really exciting. Now, I also know, and I don't know if this is the case, but I saw on your web page that you have sort of a co-teacher. You have a puppet that you work with. Is your puppet integrated into the class at all, or is it part of your performances? How does that work?
Yeah, so I don't,
Who's
you know
this
what?
guy?
It's funny. I don't remember getting into puppets. Although now that I think about it, my mom did like puppet shows for me when I was a little kid. But I really found puppets like later in life, because I love kid shows, right? Like, you know, I still remember like Mr. Rogers and Reading Rainbow and Sesame Street, and I love those, and I love them today. And so I don't remember where I got my first puppet, but I remember I went to Six Flags Great Adventure, and you know how you win like stuffed animals?
Yeah.
So I won the Dozers, the Fraggles. I won like a Fraggle, and I took the stuffing out and I just got the thought to turn it into a puppet. And then I was like, hey, you know what? I put a little hanger on for the arm, and I was like, oh, this is kind of neat. And I loved it from there. So yeah, the puppet that you're talking about is Elander. But I have probably about like 15 to 20 puppets.
Really?
And you know, I don't bring them out as much as I want to sometimes. But, you know, sometimes the kids will ask for it. Sometimes they'll listen to Elander more than they'll listen to me. And, you know, like they can be fun. You know, like now we're studying living things. So I probably have a puppet problem, y'all, because I'll, you know, we're doing mammals. So I have like, you know, I have my mammal puppets. I have my amphibians, you know, but I just love it. It's fun. I think that as much as, like you're saying, as much as it's not a matter of performing for the kids, it's a matter of, performing who I am, right? It's a matter of like really, really being me. And I love to have fun, and I love to express. And I feel like if I'm really enjoying the content, then there's a better chance that they'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
so that's where the puppets come in. They're all over the hair, by the way. You can't see them right now. They're all over the place.
Oh, I love it. And you know what? Fourth grade is really the perfect grade for you to be doing this, because they they're at an age where they can do so much, yet they still just want um, to show off for you and provide for you, and they care about things a lot. Sometimes when they get older, because I've taught middle school, and sometimes it changes. I taught sixth grade, and then sometimes the same kids as seventh graders, and they're completely different people. So it's really funny to see, and I think fourth grade is perfect for you and for giving them your gifts. It's perfect age. Yeah.
The thing I love about puppets too is I was a school counselor and I used puppets a lot.
Oh, cool.
And the kids don't care if your mouth is moving. They don't even know. I was like,
so
I'm trying to get the puppet. You don't care. You get to bob.
It's so true. It's so true. Yeah. Like one of my friends, I posted something about it. One of my friends was like, "You're a ventriloquist?" I was like, no, far from it.
Yeah. Wow, it's so cool.
Yeah.
Toney, I was on your website today too, and we hear so much about multiculturalism and being culturally responsive when we're teaching kids. And I was looking at the books that you've created, and I think that you are really working towards that. Can you tell us about some of those books that you've created? And
Sure. Yeah.
They look fantastic, by the way.
Thank you very much. I've always been a creative, right? I've always loved to create, and I'd love to write. So I mentioned visual arts was always my thing, and so kind of it was kind of like this, the meeting of all the worlds. And I had written some poetry books, or I put a collection of poems together with illustrations, called "There's a Button in My Belly," and it wasn't something that I shopped around to be published. I just, I self-published it, and kind of just like to have it and be able to walk into the classroom with it and give it to, some students or teachers. And then I wrote a book called "I'm Jack, I'm Black," and it was right around when Trayvon Martin was killed. And the response to that, there were so many nights where I sat and cried about it. I know there was one night I remember very specifically being so moved about not just the loss of his life, the taking of his life, but by the way things started to move in the country, and the sentiment that I was starting to see, and I really thought about the idea of young Black boys, especially, having their bodies and their image criminalized, just based on the color of their skin, just based on what they're wearing, and so that was kind of where the book came from, and it was just it's a very simple and short book. It's like a kindergarten reader, and it just kind of looks at how people can make those people can have those perceptions of you and have those conceptions of you without even knowing who you are,
right?
And how it's a fact of life for Black people in this country. And this one specifically was about a little Black boy and a black cat. And so, I wanted it to be something that could speak to the youngest of us, because I feel like sometimes kids are not. I feel like nowadays there's more of it, but at the time I didn't see a lot of kids being addressed in terms of these issues. Right. So I made it something that would speak directly to kids and show them examples. And, I thought the black cat was a really good kind of example of how we have these ideas that kind of come from somewhere else, and we just think about them. Why do you cross the street? When you see a black cat coming, or why do they have this this idea just based on color and the way that connected to people? So that's where the book came from.
So, do most of your ideas come from social issues, or how do you get your ideas?
A lot of them do. I write a lot of hip hop. I write a lot of just verses, which would end up being just kind of like short poems. Like a 16 bar verse in hip hop is, I see a lot of parallels between that and the sonnet, right? Sonnet is 14 lines. You have 16 bars for a rapped verse. So I write a lot of those, and oftentimes they're dealing with what's going on around me. I feel like a lot of my books, though, because I like to write for children, sometimes they'll just be silly, sometimes it'll just be fun. Like my book of poetry is a lot of it is just imaginative and fun, and I try to be funny with it. Because I feel like both of those things are really important, especially as a Black teacher, as a Black male teacher. I want people to recognize that, both of those parts can exist, within you. You know what I mean? You can be socially conscious, you can like to have fun. And so I try to show that in my work.
Right. And I like the novelty too, that you try to make it fun for the kids, because the brain loves novelty, and that helps them to remember and to learn. Yeah. So that's great. That's great. Love it.
So another question that I have, because a lot of it comes from either social issues or just, as you said, just some different ideas that you have, but also, have you created some of your rap videos that are content related based on a need in the class? So maybe deficiencies that you see in students. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. So I think it started out, I would use rap in the classroom just as kind of a way to engage students at the very basic level, right? Just to engage them in terms of, here's something that's fun. Now maybe they'll pay attention to this boring stuff I have to show them.
Right.
But then, as I grew as a teacher and as an artist, I guess, I started to realize pedagogically what was happening, and saying, this all intersects. It all intersects. And so now when I write, it's always about, I want it to be fun because I like the aesthetic, but it also has to have something that's going to click. So some things I write are very lyric heavy, and it's about me trying to pack in vocabulary words so that my kids can look through them and see that rich vocabulary, and, oh, this is one of the words, I know what this means. Okay, so then they can use context clues and figure the rest out. And some of it, like some of my more recent songs, are about are just using patterns. And so it can be really simple, but I note that pattern will help them to remember something. And it might be just reinforcing a mathematical idea. And so, so it's a little bit of both sometimes.
Yeah. Are your songs available for other teachers to use?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything, I don't have like an actual album or anything like that, but I throw them up on YouTube, or I'll throw them up on, I think Twitter. I use Twitter probably the most, Twitter or Instagram. I'll just throw them up, and then if somebody wants the lyrics, I can send them to them. I probably should use my website to organize some of the stuff and say, hey, here's the video, here's the lyrics, have fun with it. But yeah, at this point, I just put it out there and say, hey, anybody need a song about writing essays? Here you go. Right, and so that was one, right? One of them, my kids were having a lot of trouble with writing, and I noticed that I started thinking about how, for me, I didn't like writing essays, obviously, either. So I approached it as such. And within the song, it has like the patterns, but it talks about the parts of an essay, also why we write an essay in the first place, and different ways that we can communicate outside of that. So it's kind of all together.
Right. I think a lot of teachers would love to have this kind of creativity in their classroom, but they don't know how to do that, or they don't feel like they have that creativity to do that. And I see that using your things would really be beneficial to them, that it's a way to get started, and it could spark something in their students as well, because not everyone is a poet,
right?
But they want to spark that interest in their kids. And so I love that you are willing to share that, because you never know who you're affecting when you do that.
You're right. You're right. I try to think whenever I get a chance. I don't do a lot of like PD or anything like that, but I have spoken to teachers in a couple of formats from time to time, and I always think it's important to say that, I'm very proud of the skills that I work on, and what I produce, because I put a lot of time into it and I work really hard on it. But I also think that it comes from sharing, whatever you have a passion for, right? As long as your students can see that you have a passion, I think that's the base level, right? That's the first step. You don't have to be a rapper. If I didn't rap, I just happen to have a lot of, I guess, quirky things that I love, like puppets and toys and video games or whatever. But whatever it is that I'm passionate about is something that I want to bring in. So, my mom loves to knit. You know what I mean? So if that were one of the things that I love to do, I would think about how can I make this relate, or how can I show them that this is something that I'm passionate about? And again, it doesn't mean that they have to start knitting. It just means I want to show them all of me, because I want to see all of them.
Right.
That's
Those
great.
connections that I was talking about earlier. It's so
Exactly.
important. It's so important. It's not, and again, it's not just a teacher-student relationship. It's that we are a community and we are in this together. And this is I'm sharing this part of me. And so it's drawing out of them as well. And so I bet what you're seeing too is those kids who sometimes are a little hesitant to share are absolutely more comfortable because of the nature that you're doing this. So that's how I found you, actually, was on Twitter. I found it was your multiplication rap, and I watched it. I thought, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. And so that's when I reached out to you. But so you do have a YouTube channel. You have some of these on YouTube, right? So
yes.
Is that because your web page is fantastic, because it highlights your illustrations, right? It highlights your books in there. Mm-hmm. And I think, is the YouTube link to there as well?
I think it's in there. My YouTube channel has largely been teacher poems. I do a lot of poems, a lot of spoken word poems about teaching and just about our experience as teachers and educators. And over the course of the last several years, I'm trying to figure out what belongs where, mm-hmm. and that's as a, I guess as a content creator, I try to think, I know that my students now, like my students will be like, sometimes I'll play on like, what's YouTube? Like, you have a YouTube page. I've seen it. I've gone to them, and they'll follow, and past students will find it, which is really neat.
Yeah.
So that was when I started, not just putting up poems to teachers, but stuff that I was making for my students as well, and saying, hey, if they're visiting, then, I want them to have a place to, to get what I can give them as well.
Have you been remote mostly this year, or in person? What's the scoop?
So since September, I want to say we started remote.
Yeah.
Then teachers went back into the buildings, and we were teaching remotely while the students were still at home. And then the plan was to go back to the hybrid model. Now, I was going to continue to be the virtual teacher for my grade level. So I would have still had students who were 100% virtual, and I just would have been doing that from school. But now, I'm home. So I mean, this is my living room. I'm not in my living room right now, but this is what I have up for my students sometimes.
So have you found it hard to connect with students in this virtual environment?
I feel like everything's hard. Everything is harder in the virtual environment, but also I think that, there have been like I talked to my sister, she's a psychologist, and we have amazing conversations. And, one of the things we talked about with like a big group of our family members on Zoom was, as hard as things are, what are some of the COVID blessings that you can think of? And so, for me, it's been having to relearn and rethink a lot of things, and find new ways to connect. And so that was always a job for me in the classroom, and a challenge for me, because I'm very energetic, and I really like to have a lot of fun with my kids, but I'm constantly thinking of ways that I can connect with everyone, and that may look different, right? I may not be as, some student, it may not work as well, right? We will have a good rapport, but maybe I still wish that there was more that I could do for them. And so I'm constantly thinking about that. When this happened and, and the pandemic hit, I just started thinking, well, this is going to make it even, that much harder. So it's a lot more work. It's a lot more work. And I have noticed that. But at the same time, I feel like I've grown so much. I've grown so much as a teacher. I've grown so much as a person, and I've grown so much more connected to not just my students, but their families. I'm talking to the families all the time, right? Because you have to, right? They're going through so much, on their end. So I'm trying to be as supportive as possible, staying up with my connection with my kids and with the parents. So yeah, it's a constant struggle, but I'm really thankful for the growth that's come out of it.
Yeah, I think with your positivity, I'm sure that would be a huge silver lining for you, is just being able to innovate in different ways. I mean, that's who you are. So I know it's hard, but it's probably a little easier for you sometimes because you do have that innovative mind. But it is hard. It's a lot more work, and I agree, Jerry, it must be it must be harder to make those connections with the kids. But I think your point is of making connections with the parents really is helpful as well. So a lot of times it's hard to engage parents, so hard.
Right.
So this, at least you have a little bit better of a connection.
But you all talked about today, your kids were engaging each other on their own. And I love that. I would talk about a skill that they're going to need in their future. That's so great.
Right.
These fourth graders are connecting and, wanting to make their project even better.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And that encourages the other students, and so, I'm not as concerned because there were some students who, for a project might not have finished it on the date that, I was looking for them to have it in. But if it helps them to see somebody else, maybe I could have gone over it like 10 times with them and, and worked really hard and had, got into a breakout room and talked to them separately, answered emails. But maybe when they see another student do it, it clicks for them. Mm-hmm. And so if once it clicks, that's what I'm looking for. If it, the date doesn't matter, right? What I'm looking for is, did they learn this content, or, can they do this skill? And so, so in that way, I'm thankful to have students that listen to each other and are willing to share with each other.
Yeah, well, giving them that opportunity to have that mastery learning and those extensions. I mean, what's a date, right? So your goal, you need to teach them these standards. It's not like, oh, wow, that stinks, that grade in that book. Let's move on to the next thing. That's not what we're here for, right?
That's right.
And the collaboration really, that's my jam. That's the key. It really, really is. So it makes a big difference. And a lot of teachers, it's sometimes they did it in the classroom, sometimes they didn't. But with breakout rooms, I think we're all trying to find a way.
We're trying.
Yeah.
We're trying.
And we hear so much about kids not being engaged.
Yeah.
Yours were taking it upon themselves, which I think that's the tip of the iceberg there. That's wonderful.
And I know that there are moments for each student, right? So there's something that will click with them. And I have some students that, are just, they came into the class ready to go, so I feel like I'm not necessarily, maybe I'm not like igniting them, but I'm pouring a little accelerant on for those students. And then there are definitely students that I'm sitting there with like, the sticks and the stone, and I'm like, come on. I'm trying to spark something. Yeah. And sometimes it works. And there are days when I'm just like, and I celebrate, right? I celebrate like a breakthrough for one day. And then I have to remind myself that tomorrow, if things don't go well again, it's okay. I just, I got to get right back to it. Yeah. And I think being able to forgive myself in that sense is extremely important. I know that I come across very, I'm a lot, sometimes like when you see like my videos and stuff like that. But when I'm there, I'm extremely, extremely humbled every day. And I will never think like, okay, I got it. That's the thing. I always say, I'm a better teacher every year than I was the year before. right? Because of the experiences and the work that I'm putting in to learn and do better. So I know that I always have stuff that I can work on. I know it, whatever looks good that I share, I probably, messed up 3 or 4 lessons before that. And again, I think that goes back to, like you're saying, the culture in the classroom. I want my kids to know that it's not going to be perfect all the time. I messed up a bunch today and it was okay. It was fine.
We learn through those mistakes. We learn through failure. We learn through iterations. Just
That's
keep
right.
trying, keep it going, keep it going. I have one last question for you. I also know that you have been a podcaster. Jerry and I just started. What tips can you give us?
Wait, are you serious?
We started in August. Yes.
Wait, y'all are killing this right now. This is this is smooth.
We have Bravery Studios. We have Marvin as our producer who, keeps us smooth here.
He's like the Wiz.
So don't let us fool you. But what tips do you have? What did you learn from your experience doing that?
I am my father's son, and my dad always had a million things that he was trying. And so, he would try to play the guitar this week, and then he's pressing up t-shirts and, and that's me. And I love to, I try to get my students to move from being strictly consumers to being creators. So that's why I got into podcasting. I was doing interviews, my podcasts are, if they weren't for teachers about lessons or students giving lessons, then it was just trying to hear from folks. And I think that the way that you're doing it in a is the right way. Like this is it. It's about conversations. I can feel it from you when you're hearing something, and then it's not just like the questions that you wrote down is all that we're talking about.
Right.
It's you're genuinely listening to me, and you're genuinely giving me feedback and ideas, and I think that's what it is. That's what I would say is in this kind of podcast, in this kind of setting, just like in a classroom, it's really about listening. It's really about listening, and I can say that you are doing that. You got it in spades. So.
All right, we're trying.
Okay, well, I have a little potential fail here. So Marvin, be ready to cut this out.
Oh no, oh my gosh.
You've inspired me.
Oh, stop it.
This white girl's gonna try a little rap.
Let's go.
Oh my gosh.
Here we go. Toney Jackson is a 4th grade teacher. You ain't laxin'. Connecting the dots and making it happen. Glad you were on our podcast. I'm just a clap.
Listen.
Amazing, Jerry.
These are authentic snaps. These are authentic
I
snaps.
did that while you were asking him a question.
Oh my
But I was
gosh.
still listening, Tony. I was still listening, buddy.
Okay,
that's why it takes 2 of us to do this.
No, and look, if we were going in on that, I would talk about how I enjoy, like, it's just like you were saying, like I love the sounds of words. So hearing the syllables and hearing the rhymes, that's a lot of fun for me. And I feel like you were venturing into some internal rhymes there too. So yeah, that's okay. I hope, as long as I'm not the only guest that inspires a rhyme. I feel like that needs to happen again. So Marvin, just make sure, like, take a note of that. You gotta bring that back out. That was fresh.
Oh wow, that was awesome. Love it. See, look at this. Look how inspiring you are. On the fly, what Jerry was able to do. This is incredible. You are the epitome of breaking boundaries, Toney, and we thank you so much for joining us. I was so excited when I found you on Twitter, and we're going to keep stalking you. We're just it's going to happen.
Well, you know what? It's not stalking if it's welcome. So,
Okay.
I definitely look forward to staying in touch with y'all.
And
Good.
Tony, where can people find you? You said Twitter. What's your handle?
I am at He Rhymes With Me, all together, no spaces, at He Rhymes With Me, on Twitter, on Instagram. That's basically where you'll find me. My website is toneyjackson.com, Toney Jackson.
Yes.
But yeah, mostly I'm just chilling I'm chilling on Twitter, and then a lot of times I'm trying to stay off of it because it's too much. But yeah, I'll see y'all there.
Yes, it was so fun to spend some time with you today, Tony.
This was great. Thank you all so much for having me.
Thank you.
Tony.
What a delight. I'm just a clapping.
Great job, everybody. Great job.
This was a lot of fun, y'all.
Enjoyed the raps.
So
Yeah, listen,
awesome. Jerry, you're hysterical.
We bookended it. That was awesome. We bookended it. That was great.
We'll probably have to cut mine out, but
no way, not a chance. Oh my
Somebody's
God.
gonna find those. Somebody's gonna find those and stitch them together and like turn them into something. Watch.
Oh my gosh. You know what's so funny, Jerry? Because I did look.
incredible. I just love what you're doing.
I saw you and I thought, gosh, she looks so serious. I did think that for a second in my head, and that's what you were doing. Oh my gosh, you were thinking
awesome.
hard.
That was
I was
awesome.
rhyming.
I gotta give him a little rap.
Oh my gosh.
I love it. That sends me. You know, that sends me off smiling. So.
So fun. So
Thank
fun.
you. You sent us off smiling for what you're doing for kids.
I'll see. You know, this is like a competition now. You sent me off smiling larger, so I'm gonna go up with a bigger smile.
It's a competition.
Thank you,
of
y'all.
Smiles.
Yes.
Oh
Hey,
my
have a
gosh.
great weekend.
Thank you. You too. Take care.
Thank you for listening. And if you would like to stay linked up, be sure to follow us on Apple and Spotify and subscribe to us on YouTube.